Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two questions to ask, and I'm going to try to get them both in 5 minutes. So be kind of brief, if you would. The first has to do with what we've been talking about, and that is the NDS. It wasn't long ago, just I think last week, someone in the new administration, it was not the president, but someone else, was talking about we're going to have to be revising the 2018 NDS and writing a new NDS for 2022. This concerned me a little bit when I heard this, so I want to ask the question first to General McMaster and then a comment from Dr. Wright. And the question would be, in your opinion, what principles and priorities should be retained from the 2018 NDS?
Great. Well, thank you, Senator Inhofe. I'm a fan of the 2018 NDS because maybe I'm a little bit biased, but it derived from the work that we did on the national security strategy in December 2017, a strategy that I think made an acknowledgement that was long overdue, and that was the return of great power competition, and in particular, we rejected assumptions under which previous policies had been based. Foremost among them was that China, having been welcomed into the international order, would play by the rules, and as it prospered, would liberalize its economy, liberalize its form of governance, and not pose a threat. So I think what the 2018 defense strategy did best was acknowledge the threat from Russia and China as revisionist powers. I think that defense objectives from 2018 are sound. They're very difficult, I think, to argue with. They provide a broad framework for a sustained effort to develop defense capabilities over time. And I would say that the overall, three objectives of rebuilding readiness, strengthening alliances, and then reforming the department's business practices so we can innovate within the cycle of technology and maintain our critical differential advantages over potential enemies, those are hard to argue with as well. Okay. And then, of course, there are the 8 priorities for modernization. The overall point I would say is that I don't think any administration going forward should define its policies and strategies based mainly as an opposition to the one that had gone before it. Because if that's the case, we won't have the kind of continuity that we need to build capabilities. Okay,
I'm going to interrupt you, and I appreciate your response. It did answer my question. Any short comments you have, Dr. Wright, on that?
Just very briefly, I agree with General McMaster. I think the overarching principle of the 2018 NDS and to reorient the department and the U.S. military toward great power competitors is the correct sort of theme that should be continued and evolved through the next iteration of the NDS.
Okay, I appreciate that very much. Now, I've got to have time for the second question. That is on climate change. There's a lot of discussion, and I know, I've been through the Paris Agreement and all of that, and everyone applauds China and Russia and India for all the wonderful things they're going to do. But there's something that was said, a statement that was made in your book, Battlegrounds, General McMaster, when you said, people don't understand this, but what the world needs is a comprehensive strategy based on the recognition that countries will not suppress their security and economic interests to join an international group. Well, that's what these people want. The Paris Accord and the others join this international group. Aren't China and Russia wonderful for doing that? However, the American Enterprise Institute report showed, this year's report, that the United States led in CO2 emissions reductions in 2018, while China and India accounted for more than half of all new emissions. So with that, General McMaster, what would you view as the role of the military in terms of what we do in some type of a climate change policy? How does that blend into it? And do you have any comments on the fact that these countries are all getting all kinds of credit for participating in things when, in fact, you are right, they're not going to do anything that's going to impair their competitive ability?
Thank you, Senator. I'll try to be succinct on this. It's a complex topic, and I'm not, not the expert on it. But I think what is really important is that we can't afford to have any more non-solutions. the Paris Agreement is a non-solution, because even if we do everything that we can as a developed economy to reduce carbon emissions, China, India, and other emissions from the developing world, and Africa in particular, will ensure that those gains amount to nothing in connection with the problem. So the danger of Paris is it's a feel-good exercise, right? And that can lead us to complacency in this area. I think the good news is there are real solutions that are available. You know, for example, there are bridging fuels like natural gas, for example. There's next-generation nuclear. There are, of course, the whole range of renewables. But what is really important is that any solution has to be economically feasible in developing economies, and we have to recognize that China, Xi Jinping can pose as an environmentalist, but China is building 50 to 70 coal-fired plants a year, for example. The military's role is in support, right? I think research and development, but I think what the military can do is innovate to provide our joint forces the ability to sustain freedom of movement and action at the end of extended and contested supply lines in austere environments. That's kind of a niche research and development capability. I think other departments and agencies in the administration should have the lead on the issues associated with climate change and the related issues of energy security, water security, food security, and so forth.
It's a great answer. My time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.